Welcome to the Dads of Football. We're glad that you're here watching us. We are still on Justin Fields' fallout, which has got us poised to ask an interesting question. Now that Fields is going to the Steelers, who's going to have the better year? Is it going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Chicago Bears? I'm going to go first on this one, Josh. All right. So we both said in the last video that in order for the Bears to really have the success this season, they need to win. I said I put the benchmark of 9 games. You got to win at least 2 more games than you won this season to call it a success. And I could see the Bears doing that. I think that they will win 9, maybe even 10 games. However, they're still not going to have a better season than the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers last season, with a terrible quarterback situation. And let's talk about who their QB room was last year. Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph. Those were your 3 quarterbacks last year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They won 10 games with those guys. 10 games with those quarterbacks. So now you could say whatever you want about Russell Wilson, whatever you want to say about Justin Fields. Russell Wilson plus Justin Fields equals better than those 3 quarterbacks put together, bar none. Just based on those 3 guys and what they could potentially do in the NFL draft, I'm buying that they're going to have a better season. Maybe by a game. Let's say the Bears win 10 games. They win 11.
I think that's probably likely. Look, and this is no disrespect to Eberflus. I think ultimately one of the traps that we get into, right, is what do they do with their former teams when they become head coaches? What can they do here? The defense continually improved last year. They've made some solid moves, obviously, this year to address some needs, not as much on the defense. You talk about like notable signings on the D. Well, really, it wasn't so much signings as it was paying Jalen Johnson. That's the big one. And then, of course, trading for Kevin Byard. Okay, so that's fantastic. Or picking up Kevin Byard. But you're saying goodbye to Eddie Jackson. You're saying goodbye to Justin Jones. Not that he was a superstar, but he showed some growth last year. Look, the only reason why we could be talking about Pittsburgh having a worse year, and I don't think that'll happen. I genuinely believe with you that it's going to be the Steelers solely based on the fact that their quarterback situation is better than it was last year when they were a competitive team. The Steelers have the 3rd hardest schedule right now based on last year's winning percentage. When you start talking about who's on their 2024 schedule, they have to go on the road. And of course they have to play the Ravens, the Browns. They go on the road and play the Broncos, who I think are going to be improved. The Raiders, I think, are going to be improved. And again, this is the Steelers. They're going to go to Philadelphia, who knows what's really going on there. That seems like a train wreck. They go play the Commanders. Okay, that's probably going to be a win. They play the Bengals, obviously. Then, and this is kind of interesting to me, they play the Falcons, right? You're going to have Russ Wilson versus Kirk Cousins, Pittsburgh versus Atlanta. And then they go on the road and play the Colts. So you look at their road games and you go, okay, if in those 9 games, they go 5-4, you look at their home games, or let's say they go 6-3. Let's say they go 6-3. Again, at home, you got Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland. You've got Kansas City at home. You've got the Chargers at home, who, by the way, have the 2nd easiest schedule. You have the Cowboys at home. You've got the Giants. That's a win. You've got the Jets. That's a win. So now if we're talking they go 6-3 on the road, you look at the 8 games they have at home, that's 4-4. To me, that's 10 games. There's your 10 wins, Jeremy. And then you sneak one more in there, right? And now you are talking about your 11. The difference is for Chicago, for our, I guess, my beloved Bears and at least the hometown team, you play the Cardinals on the road. That smells of a win.
That should be a win.
You play the Lions and the Packers, obviously. That's a whole different discussion. I don't think those are wins.
No.
They play the Texans on the road. That's not a win. They play the Colts on the road. That could be a win.
I think that's a win.
You play the Vikings on the road. God knows what they're going to look like by the time we get there.
That could be a win.
They could win both Vikings games.
Yeah.
They play the Niners on the road. That's not a win. They play the Commanders on the road. That's a win. So right there, again, just on the road, you're talking about 3 or 4 wins for the Bears. Can they win 6 at home? and their home games that I look at and go, they can win. I think they can beat Seattle. I think they can beat Jacksonville next year. I think they can beat Tennessee next year. They're gonna beat the Panthers next year, and then the Patriots. So now you're at your 9. That you and I think both feel pretty comfortable with saying 9 sounds about right if they're gonna. So it's for me, I'm with you. It's the Steelers, and the crazy thing is the Bears have the easier schedule of the two, and I'll put my faith in Mike Tomlin long before I put it in any coach that we've had in Chicago since Lovie Smith, which is another conversation. We can do our own podcast on the mismanagement of Lovie Smith. So,
well, here's the thing too. So that we're talking about the Steelers at what they have right now. Now, obviously, we can project a little bit about what the Bears are going to have, considering they've only have 4 picks left now.
Correct.
So all right, let's mark Caleb Williams down. You know who your quarterback is going to be at this point. I kind of, can I just admit this? I secretly kind of hope that they don't take him. They took someone else just so I could laugh and laugh and laugh at everyone thinking that they would that would be like the Titanic if they didn't select Caleb Williams. All right.
Yes.
But neither here nor there. Let's say pretty much 100% it's going to be Caleb Williams. Other than that, we don't know what else they're going to do. Are they going to go get an edge? Are they going to get a receiver? You have to figure that they're going to get an edge. I would say that's your top priority with that second first round pick.
Unless they trade it.
Which I can't see them doing at this point because I
don't know why you would. You have 4 picks left.
You could get again. I'm going to keep banging the Dallas Turner drum. I love that kid. I think he's phenomenal. Take Dallas Turner. So you get those left, and now you can go further in the draft. We know that this draft is stacked at wide receiver. You could get a guy that could at worst maybe be a 3rd receiver for you in the long haul because there's so many guys. I mean, if you went in the 3rd round, got a guy like Xavier Leggett from South Carolina, would that be so bad?
Who we both love.
Yeah, and then the 4th, maybe you get your center then.
It seems more and more likely that that's the direction the Bears will go, right? And I still wonder if, with the few players that are still out there and the little bit of money the Bears have left to spend, can they address some depth needs that hit on 3 of those 4 picks in the draft? And God, the number 1 had better hit. Although to your point, it's the Bears. Like, it just feels like it could be a colossal mistake in there somewhere. Hey, we loved how Drake May looked on his pro day next week, right? So hopefully they hit on that. Again, to your point, is that more than 9 wins? Is that a 10th win? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what happens just sheerly based on those first 2 picks in the first round. I mean, I think you'll know from those 2. Go ahead.
I was going to say on paper, considering the roster that they could potentially have, plus what they have right now, to me, it looks pretty good. It's probably the best team that you have fielded within the maybe the last 10 years at this point. I mean, which is not saying a whole lot because there hasn't been a whole lot there, but it really could talent wise. This is the best receiving duo that you've had maybe beyond 10 years. When was the time that you had we haven't had a receiver as good as DJ Moore?
No. I mean, well, Brandon, you could argue Brandon Marshall. You could argue Brandon Marshall. I mean, he's pretty talented when he comes to Chicago.
He was talented. He'd be the closest, but even then, I don't think Brandon Marshall was on DJ Moore's level to be. He was close. No, he was in his orbit.
He was close.
But I don't think he was at his level. But that's probably the best that you've had since Brandon Marshall.
Yeah.
And now here's the other thing. Going back to the Steelers, since we're debating these 2 teams, let's talk about what the Steelers could add to their team. They have a lot more than 4 picks, man. They've got the first round 20th pick. Then they got the 2nd round pick at 19. Then they got 3rd round 20. Then they got another 3rd round at 35 in that round. Then you've got a 4th round. You got 1 4th rounder. You're at 5, 6th round. So you've got 7 picks, and I'm talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 picks in the first 4 rounds. They could do some hardcore damage. So again, when we talk about the loss of Deontay Johnson at receiver, they could easily pick up a stud receiver to play opposite George Pickens.
Sounds like Mike Williams was there this weekend. So I mean,
And
let's say
and if you had Mike Williams, I'd still draft a
right.
guy though. I mean,
Oh, you
with all
have
those
to
picks, take a receiver. I mean, they
for sure.
pick a receiver, any receiver, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I could see them with the first round and the 20th pick. I don't know if you do it first round, but I mean,
No.
you could get guys like, the kid from LSU, other than Neighbors, whose name I'm blanking on.
Thomas Jr., Brian Thomas Jr.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he
Yeah.
to me is going to be a steal in the later first rounder. He's a guy I think has huge potential.
Yeah.
So when you talk about those picks, you literally can add at least 5 guys of substance that could be full-time starters on that team.
I think you could argue that what Pittsburgh has done with their receivers over the last 7 or 8 years, they have turned guys that have proven to not be great in other places into productive receivers. Now, if they sign Mike Williams and then to your point, get a flyer in the draft, I mean, I think they're still probably looking for a slot guy. Watch him sign McCaffrey's little brother. I mean, watch him find, dig deep into that 6th round and come up with an athlete that they're going to just figure out how to use, because Pittsburgh does that better. I mean, they just do, and they've got enough picks to take a few of those freak athletes that they go, you know what, this guy's just a baller, he's just a gamer, and that's what Pittsburgh does. I mean, they lost Allen Robinson, they obviously to free agency. Deontay Johnson they traded. I'm sorry, like I feel better about what Pittsburgh will do in the draft, with of course, the exception of if Caleb Williams is the next coming. Certainly, I don't think it'd be far-fetched for them to get their 11, 12 wins. And you know what? For Russ Wilson to suddenly throw for 3,800 yards with, a 30 touchdowns, 7, 8 interception year, Justin Fields learning behind that. And then in 3 years from now, Justin Fields is the starting quarterback, and we're all sitting there going, man, fricking the Steelers just don't miss a beat. So,
well, and if he's throwing to Pickens, who I still think has big play potential, could be a guy that could be a superstar. You have him throwing to Freiermuth, really good tight end. You have him throwing to Mike Williams if Mike Williams in fact goes there, then you draft a receiver that could be potentially good. I mean, then you've got your weapons right there. Plus, they do have a supporting cast of receivers that could be, a couple hundred yards here, a couple hundred yards there between Callaway, Denzel Mims, those type of players.
And I think, again, that's one of the things that Pittsburgh does so much better is they take these weapons and they find ways to use them, a la what Andy Reid has been able to do in Kansas City. They don't necessarily need the biggest name, although clearly that helps in the football world, but they take guys that are ballers, that are gamers, that go up and get the ball, and they fight and commit to every yard that they get. And I wonder, to your point, if some of those later picks aren't a few weapons that they're going to cultivate and build.
And if you have a passing game, then you don't need to hand it off to Najee Harris every single time, and maybe he busts it out a little bit. I mean, let's not forget that he's a stud running back. I mean, I'm looking at both rosters as they sit right now, just talking about what they have now. Between TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Alex Highsmith, Cameron Hayward. Now you've got Patrick Queen, great signing, by the way, great guy that they got. So you have him that's 5 guys right there that I just stated that to me are big ballers. And we haven't even talked about Joey Porter Jr., Najee Harris, Russell Wilson. I mean, it's a pretty good roster.
Yes. Well, and again, it's what Pittsburgh does, right? They roll guys over. They find guys that have played a lot of football, and they commit them to playing a professional style of game. I mean, it's what I love about Mike Tomlin. Like, you just know he cultivates dogs, man. Guys that want to play hard. So.
Well, and here's what I'll say. Maybe a couple last comments here. While, Justin Fields may not be laughing at this at the end because he probably won't play, Pittsburgh Steelers are going to make out regardless of whatever happens. I mean, they look like they're going to be a solid team on paper. And let's put it this way, with the 2nd round pick, hey, if they're thinking, okay, well, we got these guys here for right now, or they go through, if they want to take a flyer on a guy, if let's say Penix falls to the 2nd round, you still could grab a quarterback in the 2nd round as a developmental talent.
Yeah, That would be fascinating to me because it seems like Fields is going to be their developmental talent at the very least. Evaluate him for a year before making a decision. But man, if they brought in someone like Penix Jr., that would be wild. That would be
I
wild.
mean,
Talk about a QB room. I mean,
he's the type of quarterback to me that if he falls to the second round and I'm like questionable about what I have, I
right?
would take a chance on him for a second round pick.
No reason not to.
As good as he was, I take a
Yes.
shot. Um, so interesting to see. We'll see. This is all recorded. It's not going anywhere. So if
Yep.
the Steelers don't outplay the Bears, then I'll eat the crow. So that's fine. But
I
that's what
think
we
we'll both
got.
have to.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm sure there's going to be more fun to be had in the NFL leading up to the draft. We'll keep you posted. Like, subscribe. Thank you for watching.